Argadon, and we're in day 4 of Learning 2.0. This has really been fun, and this is a moment I've been looking forward to. Yong Zhao is here to talk about his newest book, WorldClass Learners. Welcome, Yong.
Thanks, Steve.
If this is your first time in Blackboard Collaborate, we do recommend that you pull the chat out so that you're able to see it. Double-click on the top of the chat box and drag it out, or look for the menu drop-down on the right-hand side and detach the panel. That's often the easiest way. Then you can enlarge that chat. Also, if you're here for the first time, go into Edit Preferences, and you can upload a photo in your profile. You'll notice that many of the people in the room have little images next to their names, and that's because there's a profile photo in there. It's fun for people to be able to hover over and learn more about you. Yong, while you were getting your coffee, you missed some glowing praise in the chat. One person said that they're a changed educator since having seen you at the ISPE conference. High praise, I think.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the compliment.
Thanks to the sponsors and supporters of the Learning 2.0 conference. We appreciate that help. And I'm now going to turn the time over to Yong.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody, for participating. And as I was saying to Steve, I probably won't be using slides. I think this is more like a conversation rather than a keynote presentation. And at any time, if anyone has questions, and they can just type in the chat, I'm sure Steve will be moderating for this. So and I will try to answer as many questions as possible. I will try to speak for about really 45 minutes, mainly focus on the idea of came from my new book that's just came out by Corwin Press. And so let me start by making it rain about 3 statements, and it's something I was writing right now anyway. So for those of you, if you get 3 sentences, that's the message of the session. If you want to go get coffee and you won't be missing anything. It's a very quick summary. I think number 1 statement is that basically, I think look at the economy now. We need to create a new middle class. American or many other developed countries need to create a new middle class. The new middle class are not going to be from the manufacturing sector, but from the creative and entrepreneur sector. That is, we need everyone to be creative and entrepreneurial and globally competent. That's the first message of the book and also of this session. The second thing is that, however, our schools have been traditionally following the paradigm that's preparing employees or job seekers and job finders, and that's not going to do very well. And on top of that, what's even worse is our current education reform efforts in the U.S. And in other Anglo countries like in the UK, Australia, and even New Zealand are trying to fix the old paradigm by standardization, standardized curriculum, and by standardized testing, by all those centralization efforts. And it's actually making the old paradigm worse by trying to fix it. And the third message is what I think we need to do. We need, the first thing to do is to what I would call make a big U-turn to stop further centralizing and fixing the old paradigm while ruining or destroying our traditional strength that's embedded in some of their educational systems. And based on that, to rebuild the new paradigm based on the strength of American education and other decentralized systems. So that's very simple 3 things of message. So let me take on the first point quickly. Why do we need everyone to be entrepreneurial and creative? Since the book was out, I have had quite a number of inquiries regarding why I use entrepreneurial as if I'm making the education a business, an enterprise, or trying to produce students only for economical success, to be making money, to be, well, you know, of course, there are really some bad entrepreneurial activities from big corporations to people like Bernie Madoff on Wall Street, and all those things have ruined our life, many of our lives at least. And why am I using this term? I think let me actually start by saying that our society, the economical history, economical prosperity has always been driven by creative, disruptive entrepreneurs. And but for a long time, our society needed only a few of them. It's every few decades or every few, even centuries, in the olden times, if you get a few of them, would be good. Like think about James Watt, the steam engine inventors and his partners. And when they invent something, when they create a big enterprise, they drive certain changes and they can employ a lot of people. Then they create jobs for other people. Like think about Henry Ford is the same example, even to the extent of the computer industry. It's and once they come up with an idea, with a product, with a set of things, then they created opportunities for jobs for other people. However, recently, a lot of those innovations do not necessarily drive the same kind of job creation as before. And this is some economists are calling this the hollowing out effect of America, for example. I mean, if you look at Facebook, which was now, of course, is not doing very well stock-wise, and so don't dwell on that point. The point is to say that Facebook has created a value at this on the day of the IPO was about $30 billion, I think. That's a lot of money, but Facebook employed less than 10,000 people. They don't need factories. They do not need a lot of factories. So does Twitter. If you look at Silicon Valley, a lot of companies, when they create, it's a knowledge economy. And so what basically means that in the U.S., I think we have been, at least the political candidates have been lamenting on the fact that the middle class has been disappearing in the U.S. And the income of the top 10%, the inventors, have been growing. And the bottom part, actually, look at the labor force, is probably going to grow as well because Zuckerberg and all those other inventors, they still need services. They need people to fix the plumbing, to also to mop the floor of the restaurants they go to. So that's basically, we're looking at the growth on two ends, the polarization of lower end and the high end, the innovation piece. And the middle part, the making, the high skill, highly skilled manufacturer jobs, a lot of those things are, if they are routinized procedural jobs, as many of you are very aware of, have been gone. It's gone meaning in the sense that number one, it's been outsourced, and think about offshored to other countries. And the second thing, it's been replaced by machines. It's automation. And Daniel Pink used a term called Asia and automation, the two A's, and that's a big change. It's the productivity of workers has just risen because of outsourcing, because of offshoring. So that's the middle part. I know there's a lot of desire to bring back the manufacturers, and some of them may be able to be brought back, and some may be able to grow because of for special reasons, for specialty, special talents, and for location to raw materials, or maybe just because of political protection. But in general, on a massive scale, those are gone. What I'm arguing that in the future we will not have millions and millions or hundreds of thousands of workers working for big giant corporations the same way as we did in 1950s. That means we are not going to have huge assembly line workers with the people doing repetitive work the same way as they did before. So we do not need a lot of employees. What we will need is entrepreneurs. Everybody today, if you look at the opportunities created for new entrepreneurial work, if you think about right now, what kind of entrepreneurs do we have? It's simply speaking, we have enlarged the idea of entrepreneurs too. Number one, we have a lot of artists become self-employed entrepreneurs through new mechanisms like crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, which means individuals can invest as little as money as $5, $1 into a production of an album or production of a show, a movie, or you can that enables artists to raise funds, or anyone actually to do that. So you get on on the web, look for crowdfunding. It's a very interesting mechanism that allows you to do so. And crowdsourcing means you can, if you're not great at something, you can always outsource that to somebody else who can do it for you. So it enables everybody to become entrepreneurial. That's the potential is there. And we also, the trend has been like that. You are seeing a lot of individuals opening restaurants, running art shops, and operating online stores. All of those, the technology and globalization enables all of those possibilities. But more importantly is that entrepreneurs as a term has been redefined, entrepreneurship. That is not only people who are engaged in maximizing profit and in financially. There are now, we call them social entrepreneurs, people who advocate for a social cause, advocate for social justice. Those we call philanthropy, charitable organizations have got into the social enterprise domain as well. People who actively trying to work towards, by using entrepreneur set of skills, work towards social justice for immigrants, to environmental protection. As I was kind of joking, but it's true. Jesus Christ may be one of the most successful social entrepreneurs, and he has built a great social enterprise. People may have a different opinion about that, but definitely, I was if you are looking for example, Yong of Bangladesh, of course, the Nobel Peace winner, who was Peace Prize winner, who invented the idea of microcredit to loan money to poor women in the village and help them to rebuild their life and to build towards prosperity. So that's the social entrepreneurs, a lot of them. I think educators, actually teachers, could become social entrepreneurs. We are trying to help out with our children, but it requires entrepreneur set of skills. And the third category is people talk about, Richard Florida used a term called creative class, and those, when they are employed in the company, we need actually creative workers or entrepreneur workers. These are called intrapreneurs, I-N-T-R-A, intra. That means within. They're entrepreneurs within a corporation, within an organization, and they are still required to be creative. And the final category of entrepreneurs, people now refer to as policy entrepreneurs, and those are the folks we used to call bureaucrats. They're still bureaucrats, but we wish that they could become more entrepreneurial in coming up with more innovative solutions to social issues, to public governing issues. Definitely now in the education arena, we need a lot more social entrepreneurial capable bureaucrats in education instead of trying to a lot of bean hunters. That's the difference. So, to think about what are entrepreneurs nowadays, there's a new term I think it's been coined right now. It's called they're called black collar workers. In contrast to blue collar workers, white collar workers, they're called black collar workers. A term very much inspired by Steve Jobs' turtleneck. The black turtleneck Steve Jobs used to wear. I think is a tribute to a great innovators that we had there, entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs themselves basically embodies the entrepreneurial mindset or spirit, what I would call. Number one is that you take action. If there's this dissatisfaction, entrepreneurs do not wait. They view those dissatisfactions or unhappiness with the situation as an opportunity, as an invitation for action, invitation to come up with new solutions. If you if you're not happy with something, come with a solution, alternative ideas. And the second thing, entrepreneurs have to be creative, because today with 7 billion people on Earth, with the globally connected, anybody could come with some ideas, but your ideas needs to be unique, built on your strength, and so you have a chance to survive. And then third, you have to have confidence, because only when you have confidence, you could be persistently trying to implement. Entrepreneurs do not just talk about ideas; they actually put into action, and then they say it through. So you got the summary is simply is that someone who is going to take action to solve a problem, and the problem solution normally is very creative and unique, and then you put into action and say it through. So that's the general process of entrepreneurship. Then if today you think about globally, we are probably talking about the procedures. You identify the need on a global scale, what other people may need. If you take this entrepreneur spirit, you would view global competition differently. For example, right now, I think a lot of politicians like to be able to think to blame domestic issues on foreigners, on foreign products or foreign people. It's like I joke about this. Republicans like foreign products, so they advocate free trade, but they don't like foreign people, so they try to be tough on immigration. The Democrats like foreign people, so they allow immigration, but they don't like foreign goods. They want to into trade protection. But either way, we view both foreign goods and foreign people. If we take entrepreneur, approach, we would view maybe China, for example, by exporting, manufacturing low-level goods for the U.S. and other developed countries. It has created a rising middle class, like the U.S. in the 40s, in the 50s, somehow in that way. And those, if we, again, are entrepreneurial, we would view them as customers. We would try to understand what kind of products they might need, and we can recreate and invent for them. That's all. If we view them as entrepreneurs, immigration, immigrants, they can be a great workforce. They bring new ideas to us, And so this is very different. We would treat these people, these issues in a different. But we need to have this global understanding, not about protection. We would accept globalization as a fact. We would accept machines as a fact. Remember, we invented machines to actually replace human beings. Now we complain they replace human beings. That's not right. We invent them. They're just new problems we need to solve. But our education, unfortunately, hasn't really been preparing people to do that. Our education has been, like I wrote in my book, is about a talent reduction. Our education is like a sausage making machine. We outline the necessary knowledge and the skills through curriculum, with the state curriculum, school curriculum, or national curriculum, and we outline those things. Then we force teachers and students to teach and learn as much as possible. Then we use tests to force all education institutions to make sure to impart the prescribed knowledge and content on our students. And through that, we in essence want to reduce student diversity. We don't care what kind of interest they may have, what kind of strength they may have, what kind of passion they may have, or where they come from. We try to homogenize them. So eventually, in the end, we will produce a nice set of people who met our expected qualifications. And the better a school does that, the better we think that school is. And the better a system does that, and the better we think that is. That's why we have, now we are so obsessed with the international assessments, like the PISA, like TIMSS. That's why we're so obsessed with student test scores, because we believe those test scores is a great indicator of how well our students are prepared to become employees of the exist industry. And of course, when you look at that there's several challenges. Is that when you live in a closed economy, like the village I used to live in China, if it's closed economy, when the economy doesn't change very much, you could reasonably predict what kind of talent you might need, what kind of knowledge you might need to successfully live in the society. Like in my village, and my father would say, the ability to raise water buffaloes or drive water buffaloes to plow the rice field is definitely a necessity. Then what it means, basically, we have a common core from a village. The common core standards from a village is your ability to handle water buffaloes. So that's very, very simple. And then all children would be taught the ability to handle water buffaloes. Families have kids who handle that better, consider better schools, about children have better abilities. So I tell you this, I was not very good at doing that, so I had to leave the village to go outside to do something else and think like that. So now when you have education paradigm that's going to produce homogenized talent, and we try to suppress all the exceptional talents, then the system basically is trying to replicate and the past society. But today, that's not the case. As I outlined earlier, we needed a lot more individually, globally competent, creative entrepreneur talents because of outsourcing, because of automation, also because of the new opportunities created by globalization and technology. We need individually creative talent. So that system does not work very well, and this is the conundrum that many societies face. For example, the Asian countries, as you are very aware of, have done great in international tests. I would call them better sausage-making machines than America. So look at China was number one on the PISA, but China did not celebrate, back then when it was considered the best education system, when China is considered as the best education, and they did not celebrate. Why? Because they realized they have not been able to produce people like Steve Jobs. They have not been able to produce people like Zuckerberg. They wanted more creative, innovative talents when they want to move away from the manufacturing economy, that's a labor-intensive economy. So they blame. They think actually they mean Chinese. The Chinese think that they have actually the worst education system when it comes down to cultivating a diversity of creative entrepreneur talent. So they are doing reform. They are trying to look at the U.S. to say, what do you do here? And why does the systems, great sausage making machines, basically they are good at making sausage. They are poor at making bacon. That's what happens. They don't produce bacon. So if you look at the system, a system like that, it's you can't. When you produce people who are good at taking tests, and tests, number one, rewards your ability to find answers, not your ability to ask questions, not your curiosity. No matter what kind of tests we have, I know we are trying to bet on this new Common Core and Common Assessment. They are going to use computers. They're going to do better assessment. Whatever assessment you produce, it's going to be within the prescribed content domain. And that is still about testing your ability to comply with the prescription. You comply with whatever they want you to learn. So it's about obedience and about compliances with the system. So that's where the issue is. So when you have a system that has good test scores, you basically have more people who obey the prescribed content, who have mastered prescribed content. But in the process, you lose exceptional talents. And people like, I would call Lady Gaga, Steve Jobs, they are kicked out of the system because they may not comply or they may not be able to comply. That's why I look at China, a country of 1.3 billion people. They got to have more Steve Jobs born, more Lady Gagas born when they were young. Genetically speaking or statistically speaking, you should have more of the baby Steve Jobs. But how come we don't have more? And that's because the education system or the society or the culture, maybe it's just and not or, work together to suppress, to force compliance of those things. And so, and the second thing is that, we always praise Asian countries for a laser-like focus on education. Indeed, Asian children spend lots of time on academic content. Asian kids, including many Asian Americans, many of you perhaps still remember the Tiger Mom, from Yale, the book, the Professor Amy Chua, kind of outline the same thing. The Asian immigrants, they have great, outstanding academic achievement. How did they get there? I mean, right now, as many educators know, they're not born with a great academic test scores. It's time. If you're focused on it, you spend all your time on something, you are going to get the result. Or if you don't, you're kicked out of the system. You are going to produce good test scores. So, but the second thing I was going to talk about is time. If you spend all your time studying academic subjects, you're not going to have time for socializing, hanging out with your friends, which is important to learn about others, to understand other people's needs, and to maintain this curiosity about other people, to build friendship. Also, you're not going to be able to develop the other talents in art, music, and other areas unless you spend time on it. And the final point is that when you go through a system we call meritocracy, we go through ranking, testing, you're always telling your people you're not good enough. Because in that way, the good is defined by being better than all others. Like Professor Amy Chua, you want your children to be number one all the time. But if there's only one number one in one domain, in one area, in math or language arts, and all other people will be bad. will be worse than the number one. Remember, if you have 100 people, you got 99 people will be worse than number one. You destroy the confidence. This is like Albert Einstein once said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it would be a stupid fish. And that's a simple thing. So we lose confidence. That's why the international data like TIMSS and like the recent data I tracked down in my book showing that Asian countries, actually countries in general, global scale, countries have higher test scores, have lower confidence in entrepreneur skills or even in the subject they study. That's just happening. That is somehow, some way, countries who manage to raise test scores have failed to raise confidence, or actually have managed to destroy confidence. As I said, confidence is one of the major elements of the entrepreneur spirit. If you're not confident, you can be entrepreneurial and you cannot be creative. So that's the part, I think, our existing paradigm of education that is basically employment-oriented education. We try to produce a lot of people with similar skills through a prescribed content. And then if you look at the U.S. As a good example, U.S. has been, many people say American education is in decline, it's getting worse. I have always said that's not true. American education is not in decline, it's not getting worse. It has always been bad according to some measures. At least international test scores measure that American education students were poor test takers in the 1960s, in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, all the time. But America is still here. And how come America has people like Steve Jobs, like Blackboard, like Lady Gaga, everyone admire, while still following the traditional paradigm? Here's what I call the traditional strength of American education. American education, although it aspires to become a sausage-making machine, but luckily, due to historical accidents or some other reasons, the decentralized management system, the local control of school system, the respect for teacher professional autonomy, and the value of other talents outside academic domains, all those things, while have generally dragged down Americans' collective performance on tests, they have allowed the space for other talents to grow, to exist. We have at least tolerated those outcasts. We have at least allowed some of them to survive. So that's what I call it's American education is a poorly designed, is a bad sausage-making machine, but it happens to grow some bacon out of it. So that's why people explain what's the difference between the Chinese education, American education. One is a better sausage-making machine, and one is worse. But now, luckily, in the 21st century, we have more use for the bacon, than for the sausage, at this time. And so now, what I would actually propose to say this: we need to make this U-turn to return back to find our strengths, and then build a new paradigm. So what I would call move from accident to design. We had accidentally produced sausage-making machine that's kind of broken, and our education reformers and from the Common Core standards towards, of course, No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top, all of those efforts are trying to fix this broken sausage-making machine to make them more perfect so we can produce more homogenized talents to work in factories that don't exist. What we need to do is instead of trying to impose upon every child to be as good as each other or to even be better than their friends on a few subjects, we need to broaden that. So in this book, I'm calling for a paradigm shift. The paradigm would move towards a talent enhancement, or we call entrepreneur-oriented education. That is, we should enhance everybody's talent, not trying to suppress their talent, so make them compliant with other expected talents. Now, if you look at this, this is nothing new, actually. In terms of allowing children to grow on their own, we do that at a younger age, certain levels. We have our Montessori as great model. We call the Radical model. Or we have Waldorf in all those, we call them alternative schools, the democracy schools. We have a lot of actually quite independent private services do allow certain children to do that, to pursue their talent. But then once we get a certain level, then we began to tighten it. Of course, now the federal government is talking about more accountability on kindergarten education. That's getting worse and worse in that sense. So traditionally, we have had some of those respect for individuals. But psychologically speaking, too, we know, since 1970s, the cognitive revolution talk about constructivism. Children constructed their own knowledge anyway. We know that's necessary. Children will learn better if you're allowed to explore their own interests, their own passion. We also learned that in this process, our schools, no matter how hard we try, a lot of our children get disengaged. If you look at most of our schools, children are not happy and not engaged in what we want them to learn. And that engagement has to do when they say no relationship, no relevance to their life, to their future, that's not going to work. And also, by the way, most children, if they're young, it's hard to convince them this knowledge will guarantee a job in the future. Well, the children pursue things that they're interested in. And so disengagement. So what I would suggest, as in the book, I have 3 simple elements that's going back to capitalize on what the U.S. education has had. And the one strength is about the celebration of diversity. Truly value every talent. I think in the 21st century, as I said, technology, globalization, if you have entrepreneur spirit, any talent, when it's developed fully, can be useful. So the general, shorthand to remember that is, if Lady Gaga is useful, anyone can be useful. Just remember that phrase. Now, what we want to think about is that you cannot just be mediocre, however. You have talent. That talent has to be developed. You have to become great. So the first thing, we want to make every child creative, confident, and great in their own way, in their specialized way, and help them to apply their greatness to do that. But greatness is not born. We may be born with a great potential, but that potential can still be destroyed. What we will need is a lot of time to help every child develop that. I think, Steve, you had Daniel Coyle last time talk about his book, The Talent Code. And I learned is that if you want to become great, you got to spend a lot of time. If you want to become great, you got to have a passion to drive it. If you want to be great, you have to have good coaching, basically, who will make sure that 10,000 hours spent is not 1 hour repeated 10,000 times. So that's another thing to think about. So my first thing is, in this new book, talk about the world-class education, is to start with the curriculum. The curriculum is not prescribed. The curriculum emerges with the child. So what I would say, instead of trying to teach a prescribed curriculum by a body, no matter what kind of experts they have, we would try to follow the child. I call this personalized and strength-based learning experience. We allow, we help, we support our children's own personalization of their learning experiences. Now, this doesn't mean let children do whatever they like. You change that. You can manage that by creating a rich, engaging environment in certain directions. And some schools may be specializing, let's say, in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, and math. Some may be in arts, so some people would call it STEAM, maybe science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And yesterday I learned a new term. Maybe it's sports. Some people be in the physical talent of it. People call it STEAMs, science, technology, engineering, arts, math, and sports. So you get all kinds of new phrases coming up, but a school environment can enable that. Depends on what you create, what you craft, and the resources you provide can shape and support children's interests as well. I mean, I've always joked about that. I could have become a Justin Bieber, a great singer, but I didn't because I had no access to musical instrument until I went to college. And of course, by then it was too late. I could not have become a great singer. I might be. So that shows what we can do. So number one, personalized, strength-based curriculum or learning experiences. And we create the environment to support each child to develop their passion, to influence their passion, and to drive that. But that's not sufficient, because to become great takes a lot of time. We want children to be engaged. We want to learn how to revise, how to get feedback from others, how to meet other people's needs. So this is the second part I call pedagogy. It has to be product-oriented learning, not necessarily it's built on the idea of project-based learning, because the project-based learning, PBL, has been misused by a lot of people. So I'm calling a new term in this book. It's called product-oriented learning. That is, our children have to be making things that's useful to others or meaningful to themselves all the time. And it's through making, it's through designing, it's through creation they learn. Because when they are making things that's to meet the needs of others, like our entrepreneurs, either it's a policy, it's a service, it's a product, it's a new piece of music, or it's an art video, it's a novel, anything like that. When they create, they will realize they do not have the knowledge. They do not have the skills. Then they will go back to learn. As many of you probably have personal experience like this. No matter how much you can pass the test, memorize the knowledge, true learning comes from when you are making things, when you are using them to solve a problem, to create a product. So the second is product-oriented learning, and that includes in a process. It's a process of allowing peer review, allowing you to improve. I think in our schools, we don't let our children have enough time to work on certain products. So, they write a little essay. Unless they revise multiple times, it cannot be great. They cannot learn about the principles of discipline, of sustained creation. They need to work hard at some of this. They need to learn about the resilience. They need to learn about rejection by other people. So this is product-oriented learning. In the book, I laid out a whole process of how you do it, what you can do. It's basically to have children make things that matter to them, matter to others, and in the process, they learn about discipline, learn about feedback, learn about failure, learn about resilience, but again, they take the responsibility. They are more likely to be engaged. And the final piece of this paradigm is called the school is a globalized campus. It's the context in which learning can take place. That's through technology. Now, I think we have, by the way, this is just a little slight criticism, which is really kind of, I'm working on another book is about how we have misused educational technology. For a long time, we've been thinking about technology as a little tool to support teachers in a traditional classroom, which is nothing wrong with that. But overall, the modern information technology is now more of the productivity tools and the social tools. Really is supposed to enable children to make things more easily, to make things not only in traditional medium like writing. By the way, I think writing is one of the poorest media that you can use to express ideas. It takes too long to learn, it takes too long to access ideas and thoughts. But anyway, we have now other media available. It's supposed to help children create. But now, so far, most schools use technology for children to consume knowledge, and we try to make them better consumers of knowledge. But creators, entrepreneurs need people to learn how to create. So the first thing, as I argued, product-oriented learning is to use technology to create. If any of you are thinking about technology, think about tools for students to create. The second thing technology has done is about remove isolation, is to flatten the classroom walls, school walls, so our students can work with people from other places, so teachers and schools can bring their resources from other places, so our students can extend their resources to other places as well. So I said, now we need to flatten our school environment. Children need to learn in a globalized context. They need to learn to understand what other countries might need, children in other places, understand their future customers, understand their future partners, what can they offer to them in the making of the products, and what can they learn from other places, as well as why do people need you, need us, need our students, to now understand other people. And also, you would bring resources from outside, experts from other places. You may not be able to offer a fashion design course for some students who are interested in that, but bring somebody from New York or bring somebody from Asia. If you try to teach, let's say, Chinese art or history, they can do it online. They can do it through collaboration. So just to summarize, I think the new elements really is about personalized, strength-based learning experiences. That's the curriculum. Product-oriented learning, that's the pedagogy. A globalized learning context, that's the school, that's the where this can happen. Now, To enable this, allow me to do a little bit, to say what I've been trying to do. So I've been trying to work on this in many different ways, not only writing a book, but actually creating tools to help that. So number one thing, I'm trying to build a network of schools globally who are interested in really turning their schools into a context for cultivating globally competent, creative, and entrepreneur talents. So we're going to build a network of people who are interested and who are able to do that, who are interested in putting this into action. I was in Australia, got a lot of people interested in. So I'm trying to work together with a group of organizations to build a conference in Beijing next year, April, and I'll make some announcement later to invite a network of people who are interested in this one. The next thing I'm building now is we're going to launch this quickly at the University of Oregon. It's called OBA, O-B-A. People ask me what does OBA stand for. It really stands for nothing. It's basically a word that's universally pronounceable, and it is also starts with O since I'm in Oregon, but it's also middle three letters of global. That's what we call the heart of global. And if you're interested in, you can have access to you can give it a try at this web address. I'm typing this. So it's called ObaWord.net. What it is, it's basically a universal cloud-based computing and learning platform that allows every school, every teacher, every student who signed onto the system to create, share, and trade any ideas. So imagine this, a school could be offering a course, but you don't have enough students. You can enroll students online from other countries. You can, of course, use this to enroll your own students if you want to offer your own online learning system. In this way, this is no different really from the traditional, what they call Blackboard. We're using Blackboard, no different from Moodle, but we make it much easier to create content, to share this. So it's at a course level that allows the globalized campus. Imagine we got schools from all over the world creating different kind of courses for each other. The second thing is it allows individual teachers. We call them teacherpreneurs. If you have a great idea, if you are a great teacher in whatever domain, if you want to offer the course on your own or as part of a school to a global audience, you can do so on this platform. But I'm most excited is this. It enables students to become teachers, to become knowledge creators and knowledge entrepreneurs. Your students in your class could be creating products. We're talking product-oriented learning for students in other countries. My favorite example, if you are an English teacher, you can teach very well in the sense that you can create English language services to others. Doing grammar, teaching except for you can fix students' grammar. You can be writing textbooks, English textbooks, personalized English textbooks for students in Japan and China. And your students could be joined, I was observing a great group of schools in Australia. They call it the Reporters Academy. They send their students to London, actually, the Olympics, to report on behalf of the 15 countries in Oceania, which are not big enough to send in their own journeys to London. But now we can imagine a global Reporters Academy. Our students, they're writing global issues. You can have your student bureau in Beijing, in Tokyo, in Bangkok, in different places. So this platform is available. I saw that Steve was trying to reach it. It's not reachable because we're switching servers today. We've piloted with 5,000 students, 20-some schools in 5 countries and last year. And we are going to launch this in about 2 weeks. We just got our legal agreement. And this system is going to be basically our idea is to do schools as members. We want to reach about thousands of schools and millions of students. So it is a learning management system. It is also a portfolio management system. If students create any product, they can extract it to send to their future employees or colleges or to their parents, whatever they like. And it is also a global collaboration system that would allow teachers to co-develop courses and share. And it also allows, of course, the University of Oregon, I will be doing quite a lot of workshops on this and for online and global teaching. It also enables people to build physical, relationships with others as partners. So it's called ObaWord.net. It's going to come out very soon, and many of you will ask, how much does it cost? I try to make this cost so low because we don't have stakeholders. So University of Oregon, we are charging the initial membership fee of $1 per student per year. So if you have 500 students, $500, you have access to a global context that enables you to build creative, globally competent, and entrepreneurial students. So I'm going to end there. It's 45 minutes on the dot, and thank you very much. I'll be happy to take questions for the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Yong. I don't know if you noticed, but the first 10 or 15 minutes of the session, there was no chat because people were just listening. So if you have a question for Yong, please feel free to raise your hand. It's the third icon over in the participant window, and I can give you the microphone. There's some applauding going on. It's hard to find the applause button here. I apologize for that. But hover over the smiley face, go down to applause. Those of you who have just raised your hands, you might be applauding, but leave it up. Leave your hand up if you would like to ask a question. And we'll start taking those questions now. And you can put a question in the chat as well. So Valerie, were you interested in asking a question? If you are, I've given you audio permissions, and you can click on the talk button at the top left.
Okay, thank you. I have a specific question about China. I work in a Montessori school, which is 6 through 15. So last year I was working with 9 to 12-year-olds, and we did an exchange with a friend of mine in Beijing. She's an American, but she was working in some Chinese schools. We were able to exchange some videos through Skype, and also just by sending packages by mail with art and some recorded video and whatnot. I'm wondering more about, I know she has problems with access in China, and I'm just wondering if you can say more about that, because I do think that there's such a great opportunity for exchange with China, and I really want to move forward with more of that.
Well, thank you, Valerie. Yes, as you can see, the Asian education system is really looking for alternatives. Like Montessori schools have been mushrooming in China, international schools and mushrooming in China. However, we need to be, this is actually creates a lot of space, room for scandals, for not so honest practices. There are many groups trying to call themselves Montessoris. As far as I know, Montessori does not have a, like a trademark or anything. So anyone can call them like Montessori education. So a lot of, it's been used also as advertisement. So many kindergartens claim to be Montessori-like or Montessori schools to attract a lot of students. But the basic is that in China is a fertile market for any kind of alternative education. Even homeschooling has begun. Parents are looking for other sources of education. And I was reading a piece of news yesterday from China. It's talking about Chinese parents are basically willing to sell their cooking pots to send their kids to alternative schools overseas. So that's why, on the one hand, many policymakers, researchers in the U.S. are claiming China has the best education system. If so, the Chinese parents must be dumb to abandon that they are moving to a different type. So I would encourage you, if you want to work, in many alternatives, China is dying for that and is leading that. Of course, there's issues with the government control. The government still does not like Montessori schools or international schools to serve about too many local people, but that may change. It's again, currently the unfortunate thing is that as in the U.S., the wealthy and the rich are always able to access those great, much better educational sources, and they prescribe, standardized always for the poor. And that's why also I'm critical of the U.S. education reform. Now, if we look at President Obama's two daughters are not subject to the Common Core standards or Common Assessment, for example. So that's the kind of things we need to think about, how as educators and parents as well create equal access to much more diverse set of innovative educational sources. Valerie, if you want to go to China, let me know. If you want to, I'll be happy to put you in touch with some other groups of people who are trying to recreate schools in China.
So there are several comments in the chat that they can't reach the OBA site. When does the site actually go live again?
The site, I need to ask my staff, the site should be, we have two sites. One is called ObaWord, one is ObaVerse. ObaVerse, anyone can play with it. And ObaWord is more tightly controlled because it's for students and we want to make security. ObaVerse, anyone can sign on to work on it. I don't know if it's up. Actually, you can try this one. They're moving servers. They should be up by next week, definitely by Monday. And I do encourage you to, or you can go to this site to get a general idea of what we are. It's called Global Education, uoregon.edu. That's our site, and I've Jen trying to blog over there as well. I will make sure you have access to it and let me know. And it may or may not work, but the other thing is that I will be blogging about when it's up. If you are up, you can always come to my site to see it. And that's the ObaVerse. That's why you can play with it.
Okay, so there was a question from our librarian friend David Lurcher, who says most content management systems are behaviorist in nature. Is OBA more constructivist?
Well, thank you. OBA is completely constructivist. Since I kind of came up with that, I supervise development. If you go in there, it's like all the tools are there for people to make things, to create and share things. So that's why we changed this Moodle idea from a teaching. So if you're constructing pages, it's very much like a Facebook, where I allow you to construct more coherent content to share with others. And so there's a social network, a social element inside as well. Speaking of that, actually, I was working on an article about online teaching. Why online teaching hasn't become online education? Because online teaching is too much behaviorist-driven and targeted knowledge transmission. There's too little social and off-task interaction. So we want to create that in a different way. So ObaWord, the idea is individual students actually have their own page, have their own control. They can share, they can target, they can publish. It's about creating. This really came from about over a decade ago. I created some kind of online learning system about 1996. It's called eWeb. It's really enabled people to create content. Called Homepage Maker. I was many years ago when I was much younger. I used to do computer programming myself. If I had been a good entrepreneur, I would probably have been much richer. I would be running like that. Blackboard could have purchased me. But anyway, that was a different story now.
So there's a question, Yong, you make so much sense. Why do those who define education in America not get it?
Well, I think, there are really several answers, and I hope there's a rhetorical question. You probably know that I do about why they don't get it. It's that, number one, because people are fascinated by numbers. We're seduced by knowledge, and this is called evolutionary hangover. Actually, I wrote in the book because if you look, test scores prescribe the content and a clean pathway towards success, a cleaner defined risk course for you to complete the race. It's very seductive and appealing to parents and politicians, and we want that accountability, those things. But actually, by the way, even look today, we call college readiness. Even if you go to college, you don't have a job. The U.S. now has look at our data. We have more college degree holders don't have jobs than those who don't. This is the data come. We have on average $1 trillion of college debt. That's very sad. It's when we push everybody to get a college degree without helping them to identify their strengths, what they're good at, that's not going to work. In the U.S., ostensibly one of the most entrepreneurial countries, only less than 5% of our students actually, college grads, ever thought about, create a job. They're all looking for a job. If they don't find one, then move back to their parents' basement. That's the big challenge of this thing. So I don't think looks like my website is done as well. That's very strange. And I think they don't get it because, again, a lot of them themselves may not be living in the same situation. So what I would say is that we need to change this whole thing. I hope it can change fast. But we cannot overlook the seductive power of the traditional paradigm because it's clean, it's clear, and also America is always in this competitive mode. We want to beat others. If you want to beat others, there's probably only one, you have to set up rules and criteria to say how it's going to beat others. That's the issue, is that so we need to have one or two simple criteria to do that. And also, this is very dangerous, by the way. I'm talking about this right now. The media plays a major role to say, media cannot talk about individual success. They only they want to look at how schools are not doing a good job using test scores. PISA, the test I mentioned, it has been used and has been growing so fast. Now we have 70 countries participating in this round, and we have now individual schools and school districts participating. This is very dangerous. Now all our schools are going to be put, in terms of against schools in other places. Thomas Friedman actually wrote about this, I think in a New York Times op-ed piece. I wrote something in response on Diane Ravage's blog. It's about now future parents can march into the superintendent's office to say, why my children are not doing as well as those kids in Singapore. This is getting more and more dangerous because they don't understand the other side effects, at what cost they've reached those test scores. As educators, we have to think about taking action, on this at this level.
Okay, if I haven't caught a question, please let me know. I have 2 more to go, and we probably got about that much time. Sarah wants to know if you could expand on your plan for a network of schools and how schools can participate.
Well, it's going to be by invitation only. I'm basically looking for schools. I do believe there are schools, superintendents, boards, and especially independent schools who wants to change. And if you do, let me know, because I want schools who are committed to making those big changes, who are willing to do this. And this is not going to cost schools necessarily more. I just want to be able to work with schools that we want to have change. And let's take a look at resources. How do we realign this? How can we make it happen? By the way, what I propose in the book is nothing really new. It's been practiced in various forms and different places. It has just been on the fringe, has been reserved as a privilege to some of, a small percentage of people. So whatever I described is has happened in different places. So if schools are interested in this one, the best way is to email me, and I'll keep that in mind, and we'll decide. It's most important is, are you committed to making those big changes? There are a few, but I don't think I will be able to have massively changed the whole system, but we need the good, shining examples. Today, education.
Diana, I've given you the microphone.
Innovative,
your microphone, you click on the talk button at the top left.
Hi, Yong. I just posted my question there. I haven't read your book, but have been following this chat, trying to understand the concept of entrepreneurship, whether you use it as an umbrella term for like the students' autonomy and self-directed learning, with the ultimate goal for them to, solve problems that then bring them into deeper learning. Can you clarify that for me?
Thank you. It actually it encompasses all of what you said. The idea is I want every individual coming out to become independent, like I said, problem solvers, rather than trying to seek a position that's been created for them. The same thing applies to entrepreneurial students in the classroom, like I said. It's more student autonomy. You recreate your own learning environment. It also is the entrepreneurial spirit that you would retain after you graduate and when you enter the society. You become more creative. And, like now, for example, I'm trying to hire a lot of people. And there's a lot of people who don't have a job, but I can't find the talent. I have someone say, okay, I need someone to work on the marketing to let schools know. I just hired a fresh graduate. So what I did was I said, okay, here's Oba, here are other schools, figure out what to do. And then we will all be here to become your resources and support, but we cannot tell you exactly what to do. So that's where, like students, you can only do that when you are, learning all along the way to say, it's your job to do something. It's your job to reorganize the resources. It's your job to define something, not prescribe. If you think about our school in following the standardized curriculum, we tell students what to do. This is a problem you solve this way. We teach them how to do it. And instead, we need now students to draw on the resources. If you look at now with Google, with Khan Academy, with all these teacher resources, students should be able to start with a problem solved on their own and then bring the resources. And that's a habit, that's a mindset. So the book describes a lot more than this. So that's the simple entrepreneur spirit. Do not back down from a problem. Come up with a solution.
Yong, we've hit the top of the hour. As a courtesy to you, we're going to close now. But thank you so much. I'm clapping for you again. I'm about halfway through the book and really, really love this book. Hopefully you'll be encouraged to go out and buy it.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, we do have 2 sessions at the top of the hour. Please check the schedule. One on social and cognitive presence and the other on student-directed learning. And then a couple more sessions before our 5 p.m. Eastern keynote panel with librarians being led by our own David Lurcher in the chat here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Yong. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye. Bye.